Well, after almost half a year, the originals finally return with a new ruler and a time jump that takes the show in a whole new direction. Hey guys, remember the season premiere of the originals, Season 4, Episode 1, Gather the Killers, and guys, I was obviously hyped for this premiere. Ever since the Season 3 finale, honestly. I absolutely love Season 3, as you guys know. I think it is the most hard-hitting season. It's definitely the most dramatic season of the show that we've had, and there were so many things throughout the season, so many hardships, so many losses, just so many horrible tragedies that amounted throughout the season, and you could definitely tell after such a drastic, just a very traumatic season, that a time jump was definitely in play. I knew that was definitely going to happen, but I definitely was interested in seeing what was really going to happen here, especially with the way the Season 3 finale left off, and I've really been hyped up for this, honestly, ever since like I said, the finale, and in general, did this premiere satisfy? Hell yes, it did. I absolutely love this premiere. I love where we're going. We're definitely going in a much different direction than we've gone before, but unlike the Vampire Diaries, this show actually knows how to change things up and to make things interesting, and it really reminded me of how much better this show is at telling a story than that of the Vampire Diaries, and I'm honestly glad that show's over, because I think the original will just get a lot more time now that Julie Plec has, like, a lot more time on her hands with it. So let's just get into this episode, because I really did love it. Like I said, definitely different. It's something that takes some getting used to, the way this was done, but I definitely really liked it overall. So we start off with Vincent. He's talking to his coven and people, and he's saying it has been 5 years since the fall of the Mikaelsons, which I knew was going to be a long time, but 5 years is pretty crazy, honestly. I think it's the right amount of time, though, because it's been 5 years of peace, we find out. But it didn't come without sacrifice, and they earned it. They fought hard, but this week, as they celebrate their independence, they will be challenged by vampire visitors from all over the world who want to see firsthand the suffering of Klaus. Now, remember, Klaus is still out there. Klaus is not one of the ones that's in stasis right now. He has been bricked up, which we're reminded of. I actually forgot about that. I thought he was in stasis with the rest of his family, but I forgot that Marcel literally put him behind a brick wall. I forgot about that. But he warns them that the out-of-town vampires don't follow their rules, nor their sense of peace. So things seem to be relatively okay, and Marcel as well seems to actually be a pretty good leader. Like, it really has seemed like he's kept things in order. He listens to Vincent from the corner upstairs. Vincent reminds everyone that they need to keep those monsters buried or they will lose it forever. And just this little exposition really is a good return into the show. There's a reason why they didn't show previously on the originals thing here, because the fact that I think that this really, you could go into this episode and not have watched other episodes of the show. If you know the basis of what's happened, you could honestly go into this episode completely fresh. They're clearly revamping the show. It's becoming a much different kind of show, and I really do love how a show, when a show evolves, and this is a very good example of the show doing that. After 3 seasons, you gotta change it up somehow, and I like the show is finding ways to change it up. So obviously, as we can see, things are peaceful between vampires in New Orleans right now, and that's mainly because of Marcel and Vincent, who, as we know, Vincent didn't outright threaten Marcel in the Season 3 finale, and I think this kind of got them to come to a mutual understanding, where he believes Vincent and him want the same thing, which is independence and old enemies who became friends, and his informant tells him that the Coven is up to something, while some people are coming to rescue Klaus. She isn't sure if Vincent knows what the Coven is up to, or if he is in on it, so she knows that there's definitely a group that's coming there that threatens to disband the peace that they're all going through. They've all had this really nice, peaceful time, and they've all really gotten along, and it's been great, really. But now there's this group of vampires who really do seem to want to threaten that, and that obviously does kind of scare Marcel. So I like the way that was set up here. I thought, again, they did some very good setup. But after revealing that Hayley is off limits, Marcel learns that Alistair is after her, believing she can lead him to the rest of the Mikaelsons, and Alistair is coming to collect some of Klaus's blood to track down his siblings and child. Now, Alistair is someone who Klaus, as we know, has previously bitten, and now he has turned into a vampire, and I don't know if Alistair is going to be our main villain this season, but he definitely just seemed like he's a pretty viable threat, and he doesn't have that menacing presence that Lucien does, or even that, that very psycho nature that he did, but I do like his character as a whole. I'm interested in seeing where he's going to go. Hayley then goes to the attic to see Elijah while her daughter Hope is coloring on her bed, which Hope does not have nearly the amount of stuff I expect her to have. I know she's on the poster, but this episode she's kind of very much to the side. And I'm sure we're going to get more with Hope as the season goes on, because now Hope is older, they can do a lot more with her. And, this show, it actually does make sense why Hope would do a lot. Hope's always played a big role in this show. It actually does make sense, unlike the Vampire Diaries, why Hope is going to be a big part of the season. But I like that, unlike the Vampire Diaries, that right now she's kind of being put on the back burner. So Hayley tells Hope to stay inside. She goes outside to see Mary, who is Jackson's grandmother, and Hayley then promised her daughter to have a home where people will love and protect her, and Hayley says she can't do this on her own. Remember, that's the whole reason why they put themselves in stasis, so Hayley could have that nice, peaceful home for her daughter and not have to worry about all the dangers, erupting and all this stuff. But her daughter actually has Mikaelson blood and has their enemies too. So you can tell that she's been with Mary for a while. She's been there with Hope for a long time, and in that time she's been doing what she can to try to revive the Mikaelsons, because obviously they are her family. I mean, we've established this many times. Hayley is part of the family. All of last season was her acclimating herself into the Mikaelson family and becoming one of the Mikaelsons. And even though she physically isn't one of them, mentally she really is one of them. I mean, this is Klaus's daughter. She's with Elijah, as we know. She still has a relation with Elijah. That didn't end. She always chose the Mikaelsons after everything. And even when she was with Jackson, she still chose the Mikaelsons. This episode really does remind us how how enforced she, not how enforced, but how much she is, with that group, how far she is into that, and really the camaraderie between all of them, but also the bond that she has for all of them, and why she cares so much she does. I thought they set that up very well here, and I thought they did a very good job of reminding us of that. So Marcel meets with Vincent, asking him what he has heard, tells him to find out who's stirring up trouble. He tells him to stop, and as Marcel walks through the cemetery, he sees a snake symbol on one of the walls where he visits Klaus to talk. Now, Klaus is a lot different than we remember him to be. I mean, Klaus, he's not nearly as strong, he's very weak, and he's just not as powerful as he once was. But still just as much of a badass. That definitely is true. Like, he still is, Nick Klaus Mikaelson. He's just been very weakened, and he's been very subdued, and you very much see that. Marcel lights some candles. He's shocked that Klaus really isn't very chatty, and Marcel came for information regarding Alistair. He needs Klaus's help to get this guy in line rather than kill Alistair and start a war. Obviously, he doesn't want to do that. He wants to keep things somewhat peaceful and somewhat, just keep things somewhat subdued like it is. He wants things to be somewhat, he just doesn't want to, erupt the city into chaos. And I like that he's trying to, be very careful with this. It's very different than what we'd seen Marcel before, but I like he's trying to do that. And Klaus says he's a very vain person, and Marcel could find him quite valuable, and he could actually use him to his advantage. So it actually seems like he might actually be able to use Alistair and see what he can get out of him. But meanwhile, Hayley says goodbye to Hope, telling her to listen to Mary, and she'll be back very soon and not alone. So Mary tells her to keep her guard up and any sign of trouble run. She taps on the back of the truck, saying that these people, meaning the Mikaelsons in coffins, have lived a long life and she hasn't, so be careful, obviously. Of course, Hayley, she hasn't lived nearly as long as a life as them. She has a much better chance of dying. She's not immortal, and definitely this could end up very bad for her if she doesn't play her cards right. So Mary tells her, so basically as the city prepares for the Eurotrash vampires to take over the city for the week, we see Josh tells Vincent that Maxine has the hots for him. She invites him over for dinner. I don't really know why Josh is still on the show. I don't really know why he's still playing a role here. Now that Davina's gone, I don't really see what Josh is going to do now. Josh was always best friends with Davina. They always had that great bond. But now that she's gone, I have no idea what he's going to do now. I'm sure they'll find something for him to do. I'm glad he's still on the show. I like the character. I just don't really know what they're going to do with him now that, Davina's gone. But Marcel finally meets Alistair. They exchange gifts. He says he cannot truly be free since his maker is keeping him oppressed. And he wants a drop of Klaus's blood to confirm that the entire Mikaelson family is linked. And if Klaus dies, his whole family will as well. So, and I've said this, many times before. If Klaus dies, everyone dies. That's just kind of how it is. All the Vampire Diaries characters die, just anyone that's tied to Klaus, that's how it works. And Alistair knows he can't kill Klaus because of that. So it kind of is a very, it's definitely very stressful, and it's definitely a very tricky situation because he can't just outright kill Klaus, obviously, because that's going to kill him and everyone around him. So he needs to try to make a slightly different approach, and he actually threatens Marcel if he doesn't do it, he will release the vampires on the city, and Marcel says they shall sell it tonight at the Mikaelsons compound, and they do a very good job with us not knowing if Marcel is actually going to keep things united. As much as he wants to, we don't know if he's going to, and I like the way they really do set up that doubt here. So Hayley then arrives in Austin, Texas. She sits at a bar and she approaches Keelan, who says that she is celebrating her medical residency, and when Hayley confronts her on who she really is, she tells her to back off. They both show that the other's a werewolf, and Hayley says to meet her outside, and it's important, and I like that she was able to bond with Keelan, because Hayley doesn't really have much left. I mean, obviously, Jackson's whole pack is gone, so that's not really going to work anymore, but Alistair is entering an elevator. He receives a message stating that they found the girl and Hayley. He orders to just kill them both, and once outside, Keelan tries to knock out Hayley, but being a hybrid, she meets her around the building. She overhears the men looking for them. She then knocks Keelan out, runs off with her, saying they don't have time for this, and Marcel then comes to see Klaus again, who realizes this was really Klaus's plan all along, for Marcel to be king, and an outsider challenges rule with no one to counsel him. And honestly, that's pretty genius on Klaus's part. I love that Klaus did this all on his own. That's totally something that Klaus would do. Even though Klaus is so weakened, he still is very smart, and he knows how to challenge Marcel, and this is exactly the kind of thing that Marcel can do. There's really no one there that's on Marcel's side. You know, he has a lot of allies, sure, but not really anyone who can deal with vampires. And Marcel says that they have learned that all the Mikaelsons are linked to Klaus, and Marcel's love for Rebecca is what's saving Klaus right now. Because if he didn't love Rebecca, he'd just kill all the Mikaelsons, and that'd be it. He wouldn't care, and that's the truth. That's really why they're still, they're just still in stasis, because of Rebecca. So Marcel says the witches will kill his whole family with one drop of blood, including his daughter Hope, and yeah, I mean, they will do that with no problem. That's definitely true. But Klaus tells Marcel he needs his help to defeat Alistair. Klaus then asks for Marcel to release him, and he will lay waste to the whole lot of them. And Marcel then nods as he approaches him, basically realizing that he kind of has no choice. He needs to release Klaus. Klaus is the only way to possibly extinguish these vampires. I mean, there's no other way they'll get rid of them unless Klaus is part of it. So Hayley tells Keelan that the only way to survive is to do exactly what she says. And when asked when she's doing this, she says she's trying to save her family. And one of the vampires, and Freya in the coffin is also a witch who told her how to wake them early, and that is why she needs her venom. So Hayley agrees to let her go. She gives her what she wants, and basically that's how it's going to go. So Marcel tells Vincent he needs to be there. He needs a boundary spell of original strength, and back in Texas, Hayley then stabs Freya in the chest. She awakes instantly, but they must work fast before the rest die, and damn, I forgot how much of a badass Freya really was. Honestly, Freya had some really awesome moments here. Hayley hands her everything they need, but they have 1 hour to save her brothers. Freya isn't so sure she can do it because it will need all her power, and now that Freya's all alone, it's kind of all up to her. Before you had Davina and Freya, but Freya's the only witch now, so Freya really needs to do what she can to make this to make this go as well as possible. But Hayley goes to deal with the intruders, and I like that Hayley's not alone here. Like, she does have someone by her side, even if, once again, Freya isn't really sure if it's actually going to work, if they're actually able to wake up the Mikaelsons after all this time. She doesn't know if that's really going to happen. I definitely do like the way, again, that doubt is set up here. So Alistair arrives with all his people at the Mikaelson compound. Marcel brings Klaus in. He hands Alistair the sword back with his venom on it to get the drop of Klaus's blood. He needs to destroy the whole family. And as Hayley fights for the Mikaelson family in the warehouse, Freya is trying to revive her brothers. Alistair then taunts Klaus about the suffering his wife and child suffered. The people around the circle are telling him to kill Klaus. He says that Klaus wants to hear his last words, that he will find his lovely daughter and eradicate her from this earth. And that's enough to, he's about to just cut Klaus's head off. Now, you obviously know Klaus is not going to die, because again, the show would be over if that happened. But Klaus then uses chains to take him down. He stabs one of his men with the very sword that Alistair gave Marcel. He says, "Meet your maker," and Marcel then knocks Klaus out, saying he keeps him alive for his blood to keep the wolves in line and as collateral against his family. Now that was an awesome scene. I love that even at his worst, where Klaus is at probably his lowest point he's ever been at, he's still able to take out, whoever he needs to. And I love the way he's able to do that, because obviously, I've said so many times before, what is the one thing that Klaus has done, this entire show? Everything he's done pretty much has been for Hope. So anytime someone threatens Hope or Hayley or something like that, he will obviously just take them out and, destroy them. So Marcel then claims to be the only one who can keep him from coming after all of them, and Marcel tells everyone to enjoy his city and to never question him again. So he then offers for them all to celebrate, and Freya then continues her spell while the men continue to outnumber Hayley. When one of them tells her to give up, she says she has a better idea. She turns into a wolf, just rips them apart, and that was pretty cool to see. I love the way that was done. Freya then brings her concoction. She pours it on the bite on Elijah's arm. Hayley turns back to a human, asking if they want some more. But before she can do anything, someone or something kills the rest. She stands naked. Elijah then stands behind her. We get this fantastic, really great reunion where she kisses him. He holds her tightly. It's a really satisfying stuff. I really love seeing those two reunite. I was very happy to see that they got together last year. I never expected that to happen, but I like that Elijah's back, and I like that we'll see more Hayley and Elijah. I like these two together. I think they bond quite well, and I'm looking forward to seeing where they end up going, with this relationship, because I actually really do like the relationship. I know a lot of people don't, but I actually really do like it. So Marcel then speaks to the informant. Everyone is celebrating. She tells him every vampire in town either loves him or fears him, and that's very much true. It doesn't necessarily mean that they like what Marcel is doing, but he is a very intimidating force, and he really is quite a force to be reckoned with, and now he only needs to worry about the covens, because it seems like he's good with the vampires right now. At least he thinks he is. The Mikaelsons are probably going to come back and wreak havoc eventually, but right now things seem okay. There are definitely covens out there, and she tells him that occult graffiti is showing up all over the town, including the quarters, and basically he has to fear of that, because obviously we know what covens can do. They can do some really fucked up shits, and we know is connected to that. Definitely he knows that Freya definitely is connected to there, and definitely this does scare him a bit. So I definitely like the way that was done. I thought that, again, seeing Marcel try to hold things together, it's definitely trying to see him hold things together, I thought was definitely very well done. I like the way that was handled overall, and I'm interested in seeing, if Marcel is able to hold things together, because it seems like he is, but again, he really hasn't had much to worry about, and now that all these threats are coming up, I don't know if he's going to really be able to hold it all together. We'll have to see. So we then get this great scene with Vincent and Klaus, which I love this scene. He goes to see Klaus. He warns that there will be enemies flocking to New Orleans, causing all kinds of mischief. But when he escapes, he'll be seeing his own justice in Marcel. So eventually, yeah, he is going to try to dethrone Marcel. I mean, he'll do whatever he can to do that. And the only reason why Marcel has been able to stay in control is because Klaus has been chained up and the rest of his siblings have been in stasis. So obviously, there's really not much he could have done. But Vincent then brings up Cammy and how she had always believed that there was something good in him, and doesn't understand why Klaus is so hell-bent on proving her wrong. And I think it's mainly because Klaus has convinced himself that he just doesn't have that good in him. Even though I think deep down he knows he does, he always seems to revert back to that because he needs to do that to protect his family and all that kind of stuff. And it's sad to see, definitely, that Klaus doesn't believe he has that good in him, and I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen there. But back in Texas, Keelan asks to be let go. Freya says her family has ever been against, she will need more, which means they will need her alive. Freya reminds her that she had to deal with Hayley, not her. Freya says when it comes to her family's safety, she doesn't negotiate, and Hayley sees that Elijah's infection is gone, and after all this time, they do still love each other, and even without saying it, he wants to know how his niece Hope is doing. She says she's happy and healthy and the perfect little girl. She also made Hayley promise that she would one day get her family back, all of them, and Hope really is going to be the key to all that, because again, Hope is a witch, as we know, so Elijah says she is a child after his own heart. Well, actually, Hope is a hybrid, but she does have the witch part in her. Elijah says she's a child after his own heart. Hayley says there's only one left, and Elijah tells her that they will go get him. And Marcel then comes to visit Klaus. Klaus says he needs him, if not for anything else, then to make sure he doesn't become the monster that he is, obviously. And Klaus says that Marcel cannot escape the shadow he's cast. And when Klaus leans in to tell him that he is weak, Marcel then stabs him with a rib knife, just not wanting to hear anything about that. And basically, Maxine then comes to find Vincent, who tells him her son Adam never came home. She's looked everywhere, and Adam is then walking through the quarters. She sees some of the occult drawings he's drawn into the drawing and screams, so I don't really know what that's all about, but I'm guessing she's going to play a major role into the rest of this. But we then get to the ending, where this ending was actually really creepy, but really well done. Hope wakes up from a bad dream. Mary holds her as papers with her drawings of all the occult symbols lay around her room, so we see that Hope is definitely connected to this coven that is threatening to take over New Orleans. We don't know what's going to happen there, but that is the way this episode ends. Really great stuff overall. Let's just get into this episode and where I think we're going to go throughout the season. So overall, guys, as usual, this was another really great episode. I really did love this episode overall. But like I said, it was quite different from the norm. I mean, usually we have the Mikaelsons, and they're the main focus here. But it seems that Marcel and Vincent are actually the main focus this season, which I do like. I like they are changing it up a bit. But let's talk about Marcel, because right now, I'd say he's doing a pretty good job, actually, as king, which I'm surprised about. I thought Marcel would be failing miserably. I mean, I thought he'd have that guilt would weigh on him, because I've said before, I mean, Marcel knows what he's doing. It's not right that he does have a reason to, thank Klaus, and that Klaus hasn't completely wronged him. He actually has done a lot. Yes, there's been a lot more wrongs than rights, but there definitely has been things that Klaus has done right that Marcel just doesn't really seem to thank him for, and doesn't really seem to give much note of. So, again, there is definitely that, but it seems like things are going relatively well for Marcel. He's actually kept things in order, and that they've maintained this peace treaty and everything. But now we see that there are all these outside threats that are coming to finally wreak havoc. Now, I don't know why now all of these threats are coming out. This is my main thing with this episode, is why now is this happening? Why hasn't this happened, 3 years ago, 2 years ago? Why is this suddenly happening now? That didn't exactly make much sense to me. I don't really understand why now this is all going down, but I definitely really like seeing Marcel try to run this kingdom and basically realize that he's kind of outnumbered and realize that he kind of does need Klaus. And even though I think he doesn't want to believe that, he kind of does need Klaus in that way, because Klaus is the only thing that really keeps him from going fully dark and becoming that monster. And Klaus, on the other hand, we know eventually he is going to take out Marcel, and I love the way they do set up that confrontation that's eventually going to happen there. Right now, they are definitely having confrontations, but it's a lot more subdued because there's only so much that Klaus can do. He can, verbally threaten him, but he can't really do anything physically. I mean, he essentially is his slave right now that Marcel is using when he needs him, which, again, it's not going to last for long once I think Elijah and Freya, make themselves more known, and whenever Cole wakes up and things like that. But right now, Klaus just is a little bit more subdued, and I like seeing this more toned down Klaus. Like, Klaus is still hardened, and he's still definitely very violent and erratic and things like that. That's just how Klaus will always be. But he can't really do much in terms of violence and in terms of, vitality and things like that. He still is, has a lot of menace and ferocity in him as usual. Obviously, after all, he is, Klaus Mikealson, but he isn't as, powerful, and he isn't in control like he usually is. And I like seeing that. I like seeing that he's not in control of everything. I like seeing that he's much more to the side of it all. And I think it definitely is going to be interesting to see how long that actually lasts. Eventually, he is going to dethrone Marcel, but who knows when that actually is going to go down. And if anything this season premiere tells me is that it might not happen for a while. I think he's just kind of waiting for that right time to eventually get to Marcel and, try to dethrone him. I think he knows that Marcel's not really in charge. I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen there. The whole thing going on with Hayley and Hope, this is very interesting, because we know that obviously Hope is a hybrid, and she is definitely connected to these occult symbols, and I like that she is connected to that. I'm interested in seeing really what's going to happen there. Obviously, there's a whole thing going on with her and these occult symbols. We don't know if she's connected to it, if she has these powers, what's going to happen there. But again, we have to really keep in mind the poster of the season has Hope on it. So Hope is definitely very heavily connected to a lot of what's going to be going down the season, and I'm honestly fine with that. Like I said, unlike the Vampire Diaries, she's played a big role since season 2. And even though Hope hasn't been a full-fledged character, this is the first season she actually is like a legit character and not just, a MacGuffin that they have to protect. Because that's essentially what she's been. She's been someone they have to protect and things like that. This season, she actually is, a big part of the show, even though she's not a main character. I'm interested in seeing where they're going to go with that, and I think that definitely is going to be interesting. Maxine and Adam, I don't know what's going to happen there. We're going to definitely see more with Adam, but I'm sure definitely something has to do with the occult, so we'll have to see what happens there. I think that's going to be interesting as well, what ends up going down with that. I love seeing Hayley and Elijah reunite. I think that was definitely one of the highlights of this episode, was just seeing those two. After 5 years, finally Hayley gets her man back, and finally everything seems good for Hayley and Elijah. I always love those two together. I know a lot of people don't, but I actually really do like those two together, and I think they actually had some very good chemistry there, so I really did like what I saw of them in this episode. I thought that was definitely very well done, and I liked Hayley's quest here, like, just her, just her very, and not erratic, but very rapid nature, where she knows she needed to do this as quickly and efficiently as possible. And if this wouldn't work out, this could have ended up very badly for them. But how long is it going to take to wake Cole up? And especially Rebecca. Rebecca doesn't seem to be much of a problem now. Now, I get it that they're trying to keep Rebecca, I think, asleep, because they know that Marcel will be the one that will try to probably compel her and put him on her side, which he almost did. If you remember last year, it seemed like Marcel was going to go with if Rebecca was going to go with Marcel in the finale. But I don't know how long they're going to keep Rebecca, asleep. I know Claire Holt, again, has another new show, which really prevents her from being a main character. I'm hoping she'll play a bigger role this season, because she is, in fact, asleep, and there isn't really much of a reason for her to go away. But I really hope this isn't something where it takes a very long time for her to finally wake up. I hope it's not like, the last 2 episodes of the season, which is typically what happens, that's when Rebecca wakes up. It's worked for 2 seasons now, because Rebecca's been in and out of the show. She can make appearances now and then, but she's asleep right now, and she is in the same place that Cole is. So if Cole is getting a lot of stuff, I think Rebecca should have just as much of them, and I really hope the show doesn't delegate her to what they have, in the past 2 seasons. I hope they don't do that, because I really love Claire Holt. I want to see more of her, and I really do hope they show more of her throughout the season. Vincent looks to play a bigger role as well. I like seeing that Vincent is actually working with Marcel, and he's kind of the one that's keeping things very much in shape, and I think Vincent really does need Marcel, but he also very much needs Klaus in that way. And I think Vincent as well, he knows eventually that Klaus is going to take down Marcel, and I think he knows that Marcel shouldn't really be running things. Again, he did kind of outright threaten him last year, so I think he definitely does want, the Mikaelsons in charge, but he doesn't want, he obviously doesn't want to change the peaceful atmosphere that Marcel is creating. If Klaus comes to take that position from Marcel, that definitely is going to threaten that peace, to be somewhat, destroyed. Not completely destroyed, but it definitely is going to dial down a bit, and the city will probably erupt, probably to what it was before, which obviously is, definitely total chaos. That's definitely going to happen at some point. Overall, guys, I definitely really did love this premiere. Not as good as the Season 2 premiere or the Season 3 premiere, just because I didn't feel the stakes were as high, so it's definitely more of a expositional type, trying to kind of reintroducing us to the characters, reintroducing us to the show. Like I said, this actually kind of works as a pilot in many ways, where you could have just started off with this episode, because they are reintroducing a lot. There are a lot of new storylines going on. There's a lot of different stuff going on with these characters, and I'm definitely interested in seeing where we end up going throughout the rest of the season. Overall, I still did love this premiere, though. I'm very interested in seeing where we're going to go throughout the season. I am going to give the original Season 4, Episode 1, Gather Up the Killers, a 4 out of 5 or a B+. So we're guys moving this episode of the originals. Let me know what you guys saw this episode overall. Left your thoughts in it. Obviously, very happy to see the show is finally back. Very happy to get back into the conversation and things like that. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for a movie review, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.